What was a leper to do if he was cleansed of his leprosy? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Leviticus on walking through the Bible.
The glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, turn to Leviticus 14. We're going to be reading from verses 1 to 9. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Leviticus 14, beginning at verse 1. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, This shall be the law of the leper for the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought to the priest, and the priest shall go out of the camp, and the priest shall examine him. And indeed, if the leprosy is healed in the leper, then the priest shall command to take for him who is to be cleansed 2 living and clean birds, cedar wood, scarlet, and hyssop. And the priest shall command that one of the birds be killed in an earthen vessel over running water. As far as the living bird, he shall take it, the cedar wood and the scarlet and the hyssop, and dip them and the living bird in the blood of the bird that was killed over the running water. And he shall sprinkle it 7 times on him who is to be cleansed from the leprosy, and shall pronounce him clean, and shall set the living bird loose in the open field. He who is to be cleansed shall wash his clothes, shave off all his hair, and wash himself in water, that he may be clean. After that he shall come into the camp, and he shall stay outside his tent 7 days. But on the 7th day he shall shave all the hair off his head, and his beard, and his eyebrows. All his hair he shall shave off. He shall wash his clothes, and wash his body in water, and he shall be clean. In chapter 13 we had the many regulations that God gave Israel concerning leprosy. They were very repetitive, but we noted that the leprosy described here is not necessarily the same leprosy of today, for biblical leprosy is much broader to include multiple skin ailments. The one who would proclaim someone clean or unclean would be the priest, which would be done after examination. If someone was pronounced clean, they would be able to return to daily life. If, however, they were unclean, they were banished from the camp, couldn't dress nicely, had to look ungroomed, and yell unclean, unclean to those who passed by. This was to continue until their disease was healed. For some diseases, this might be a short period of time, but in other cases, it might be much longer, if ever. What chapter 13 didn't give us was how a person who was proclaimed unclean would now be cleansed. That's what most of chapter 14 deals with. The first thing that must happen is that when someone was trying to be pronounced clean, that they must have the priest summoned to come outside the camp and examine them. Of course, if they still showed signs of the disease, they would remain unclean. But if the leprosy was healed, the person wasn't declared clean right then. There were things that he was commanded to do in order for him to be considered clean. The first thing that must happen is that 2 living and clean birds, along with cedar wood, scarlet, and hyssop, would be brought to the priest. The first bird would be killed in an earthen vessel over running water. As for the remaining living bird, that was to be taken along with the cedar wood, scarlet, and hyssop, and dipped in the blood of the bird that was killed over the running water. This would then be sprinkled 7 times on him who was to be cleansed of their leprosy. We do not know which part of the body this was to be sprinkled over, whether it was the head or the hand or some other body part, but the feathers of the bird and the hyssop were especially useful in this part of the ceremony. After this was done, the person would be pronounced clean, while the living bird was released into an open field. Now you might think that once a person is pronounced clean, that they can go back to regular life with nothing more to do. But that is not what we find here. Yes, they were declared clean, but there was more to do. The first thing we find is that they had to wash their clothes, they had to shave off all their hair, wash themselves in water so that they can be clean. Remember, a leprous person was not to look presentable. They wouldn't wash their clothes, they wouldn't bathe, they wouldn't comb their hair. They would look rather disgusting by today's standards. In washing, not only would they be cleansing their body, but they would be symbolically cleansing themselves of that which made them unclean. The shaving off of all their hair would also symbolize that. Once this was done, they were allowed to re-enter the camp, but not yet enter their house. They had to live outside it for 7 days. On the 7th day, they were again to shave off all their hair. That might have started growing back during this time, and again wash their clothes and body in water, and then they shall be clean. Okay, so the person did these things. Was the process over? Not quite yet, for there was still the matter of sacrifices that needed to be offered. Sacrifices that couldn't be offered while they were unclean. That's what we'll deal with in our next episode. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Leviticus 14, verses 10 to 20, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.